is Tuesday, and you know what that means? A new episode of Epical Growth. I am Sarah Caminiti, your host. This is episode 16 of Epical Growth, and I'm so happy that you're here. This is a podcast where we unlock transformative business insights and leadership strategies. We're going to be tackling a really important topic today, setting boundaries at work. I feel pretty lucky today to be joined by Hilary Dudek, Head of Customer Experience at Gamma. She has a wealth of knowledge and industry experience on how to establish and maintain effective boundaries in your professional life and how that impacts your personal life too. We're going to dive into some practical tips on how to communicate your boundaries clearly, the impact on boundaries on team dynamics, the strategies for creating a culture that respects and upholds these limits, and how to create a collaborative foundation with your BPO. I don't need to remind you to like and follow and subscribe and share this podcast with anybody that you think would find it valuable. If you think somebody could learn something wonderful from these leaders, please pass this episode along or any of the other episodes of Epical Growth. All right, let's explore how you can redefine your work environment with strong and healthy boundaries. Are you ready to make a change? Let's go.
It teaches you so many skills that I think translate so well to customer service and customer support, like not being afraid to talk to anybody and being able to hold an interesting conversation, able to speak clearly. You know, my diction has gotten very lazy over the years, but in theory have great diction. All sorts of things like that. I think it's such a good skill set to have, even if you never do anything with it professionally.
I agree completely. And I also think that the ability to play a role also is something that, at least for me, like it's shown itself in ways that I don't realize until I'm like reflecting on it later. But you know, you're allowed to, you know how to approach things like, okay, you've got an angry customer. All right, well, let's just meet them where they are and shift into that and kind of just make it less of a personal experience, like personal to it's impacting you as a human being, and more of, all right, now I need to kind of to play this role of this de-escalator, and it doesn't have anything to do with me, and be able to shift tone and context from person to person that you're talking to. I think a lot of that can come from a musical theater background too.
I completely agree. And I think that lends itself, being able to put on a different role or persona. I mean, honestly, similar to, I never worked at Disney, but it seems similar to working at Disney. Like, I am now this customer service person that cares so deeply, and I'm going to, you know, not take anything personally. But then you can drop that persona, and it creates a boundary between yourself and your energy and the energy of the person on the other end of the interaction. And I think that's something that's really important, especially in industries that are already really tough to support, like healthcare, for example. I mean, healthcare is overall a fairly depressing industry to work in customer support. So if you can create that persona and use that as your protection and your shield, I think it's a really great thing.
I love that. I love that you brought that up, because it is creating that boundary is one of those things. It's a skill that you have to learn, and you have to have been burned probably a few times in order to understand like where your limits are and what actually happens when you give yourself so fully to the customer, and truly it does not change the outcome for the customer experience if your heart and your soul and like all of your emotions are tied to the success of this person. You can still deliver that like incredible experience and save yourself and your energy in the process. And that comes with time, and it's an easy way to burn out and not like this industry anymore if you don't find that space. But also as a leader, it's such a cool thing to teach others how to do and make it feel safe to like acknowledge that, yeah, this sucks. But this doesn't have anything to do with you. And so let's figure out tools that you can bring into this to like, you know, make it so that you don't feel so like depleted after these conversations.
Exactly. I 100% agree. You shouldn't close your laptop or leave your office if you're working in office at the end of the day and like bring those stories home with you, or that other person's, I guess, mess or baggage or energy, whatever. You should have a barrier between that, because otherwise it's going to impact you. It's going to impact your family and friends and whoever you're interacting with after that. And that's not fair to anyone. And like you said, it's not productive. It'd be one thing if it was productive, if you were, I don't know, a surgeon thinking over this person's problem and then you come up with a solution. That's probably a more productive use of your time, although I would argue they still need boundaries somewhere, maybe just in a different way. Um, but like you said, you can only do so much. So at that point, you have to be able to say, I've done what I can. This really sucks, but it's got nothing to do with me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too it can really impact your self-esteem and your self-worth. It's if every day
Yeah.
you are allowing these other people that you don't know to speak to you poorly, or to talk down to you, or to just like impact you in ways that it's not appropriate or it's not healthy. And if you don't have a leader that's able to give you that out of, no, there is no way that you are supposed to be treated this way. There is no way that anyone is going to treat my team this way, and step in and give you that freedom to say, this one has been a hard one, or I'm really thinking it's leaning into danger zone. Can you just jump in here, please? Because I just don't think I have it in me to continue on this conversation. Gives your team just such an opportunity to breathe, and sets the tone. But it really is up to leadership to make that happen.
It really, really is. And that's something that I've always strived to do. Um, and just always make it known and reiterate and then put it into action. Of course, it's one thing to say things, but then if you don't actually jump into the interaction to support your people, I think it's kind of meaningless. But making it very clear that, we have zero tolerance policy for harassment and abuse, verbal, any sort of abuse, any sort of inappropriate language. Language, I feel, when it's just like our normal everyday 4-letter words, I do feel like there's some people that handle those better than others. So I've always blurred the line a little bit there. If someone's super angry and they're maybe swearing at your product, for example, if you're the type of person that is unbothered by that, then great, like just roll with it. But if it's personal to you, or we're cursing people, or threatening people, that's something that just won't be tolerated. And I don't care. I will go to bat for you, to leadership. Hopefully we have a good leadership team that will also be on my side, but like, I don't care. I don't care if we lose that customer. I don't care if we lose that revenue. You're still a human at the end of the day. This is just a job in this capitalist hellscape that we're living in. And it doesn't matter. Your personal well-being is not worth it.
Yes, 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 yes. And it doesn't even have to escalate to a point of a 4-letter word or actual abuse. If it's like any ugh, feeling that you get when you are approaching the conversation, or something like starts to get those feelers up of, I don't really like this anymore, then
Mm-hmm.
I always tell my team, like, just call it. Just call it. I would way rather you let me know and bring me into the fold than wait until it has hit that point and you are feeling those things and they
Right.
are saying those words, because half the time you just need to say the exact same thing that everyone's been saying to this person, but then put your title at the bottom, and
Oh my God,
miraculously
yes.
they're so grateful.
You get it. You understand. I know. Early in my career, I would go in and I would do exactly that. And I definitely had directs that were like, but I just said that. I'm like, I know. And it should matter when you say it. And I'm sorry that it didn't. But the fact that yours says, customer support agent, and mine says customer support manager, makes a difference. It would also make a difference probably if I had a masculine name versus a feminine name. So it's out of your control, unfortunately. That's the world we live in.
Yeah, yeah, and even like, I love that you said that the masculine thing, because that is so true. I feel like I
Oh
dream
yeah.
of someone did like an experiment where they like started a job, and they had they like, there was a misspelling or something with their name, like within the system, and it became like a masculine presenting name, and so they just kind of like rolled with it, and and then they ended up switching back to like who they actually are, and the difference in conversation and quality of conversation was like nuts. Which isn't surprising, but it's still depressing.
Yes. No, you did not make that up. I don't remember who did it, and I don't know if they were part of the community or if it was just a community member that brought it up and talked about it, but that definitely happened 100%. And I saw another article, a more recent one, where this person, I think she was an individual contributor, she was like a consultant or something, and so she had a website with a AI chatbot that had a masculine name, or no, it had a feminine name, and all the men were hitting on it. It was just a scheduling bot. That's all it did. And like the amount of men that would hit on it or ask it out was staggering, and they had never interacted with it before. And it was a whole article. I'll have to find it and send it to you, but that was fascinating to me and also really gross.
Wow. What is that? Like, what a world we live in. What a world we live in. I mean, I've got a lot of thoughts about that, but dang, like bold moves. Bold
Right?
moves.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Yeah.
Damn.
Gosh, yeah, people are fascinating, but that's what drew me to support. And that's what I've always like said in pretty much any job interview I've ever had, starting from when I was really young to even now. Like, why do you want to do this? People are fascinating. They're absolutely fascinating. They frustrate me. Sometimes I hate them all. Sometimes I love them all, but they never cease to amaze. I'll tell you that. They keep it interesting. Humans are interesting.
Yes. Yep. They are, and they are a puzzle. And every single person is a very different puzzle. And when you are able to work in support, you have the chance to test out different puzzle pieces and experiment and be surprised. And I don't know. It's such a different place. It's a special place. And that's why I think the people that are in the
It is.
community are as special as they are, because we all are here for a reason, and others outside of our circle would not be as successful or tolerate this space the way that we thrive in it.
I completely agree. It definitely takes, and it took me a long time to understand that not that I'm specifically like special, but like in general, that customer support, customer service people are unique and are gifted in that way. For a long time, I was just like, well, yeah, you just answer the phone and you do these things, or well, yeah, you're going to approach it this way, or yeah, you're going to, it was just, of course you do that. And then I would work. I'm thinking back specifically to like my days in hospitality when I was actually in person. So I could like actually see how other people were working, working at the front desk of a hotel. And it was mind blowing to me that like truly, like some people are not cut out for it. I'm sure they have other gifts and talents that they should be applying elsewhere. But like the amount of people that didn't get it from a customer service perspective, it was super eye-opening to me, and it made me feel really good about my career and where I'm going in it, and that this truly is a skill set that not everybody has, and that's awesome.
Yes, 100%. It is it's something that took me a while too, and I've noticed for a lot of folks the journey to actually a career and being proud of your career in support has been a long and bumpy journey. And I mean, I think some of that has to do with tech and the industry, and actually creating a space for people to like level up their career in the support world and have it not be just a stepping stone. So the conversations have kind of changed in that regard, but still it is a group of people that have to be clear communicators. They have to be able to be quick on their feet. They have to be articulate, but also be able to pivot. They have to be thoughtful and empathetic. They have to be actively listening. They have to be doing all of these things. And that's just in one interaction. They've probably got 7 other
Yes.
interactions that they're dealing with at the same exact time, and they're able to do it. So yeah, it's a
Yes,
skill.
it 100% is. And people should feel good about having that skill set, and there's a use for it. There's never going to be AI robots, AI whatever. It's never going to get to the point where you won't need a human. using hospitality, since I just used that as an example. Of course, you can like automate your check-in and checkouts. And honestly, I really like that because I like not having to wait in line and talk to a human. But like pretty much every single hotel still has at least one or two folks at the front desk. Like
Yeah.
your skills will always be needed. Fast food workers will always be needed. Like delivery people, all this customer service, it's not going away. So why not double down and be proud of what you're doing and like work to like just really excel in those skill sets?
Yes, totally. It is it's so true that this is a weird time that's like it's a positive and a negative thing that's happening right now with AI with the realization of what support professionals are actually doing based on the types of tools and analytics that are coming out of customer support focused AI things. Because these are things that we've been doing manually for years. But I think that it's going to be a huge shift in like a couple of years where all of these places that are like, oh, we're going to be totally AI. We're just going to totally lean into AI. This is the only way that we're going to do it. We're going to even do AI on phone support. Why not? And then they're going to realize, oh, hey, yeah, no, we have lost a huge amount of credibility of our customers, of the type of like, I don't know, buzz around us, because now we are known for deception and poor service,
Yes.
and making things incredibly hard for customers, and it's gonna backfire very, very hard.
Yes, 100%. Use AI, use these cool tools that are coming because they're very cool. I work for a company that uses AI to build awesome slide decks. But it's not replacing the person delivering the presentation. It's not replacing the person. It should make the customer support person's job that much easier. They should be handling what I consider, if you truly love customer support, is the fun stuff, the complex puzzles, the really tough things, the mindless, repetitive, questions or whatever. Those can be done away with, absolutely, and redirected to help center or the AI or whatever. But it's only to make more room for the customer support person to do their job as excellently as they can. That's just a skill set that I don't think AI is ever going to be able to replicate.
No, no, and even those ones that are those like repetitive tasks or questions, I love those ones because I think that they are a gateway to developing a relationship with the customer, because you are showing them that even these questions where you may feel silly asking them because they seem so obvious, no, it's still a safe space
Mm-hmm.
for you to ask those questions. And if you create that kind of foundational opportunity with the customer, then you're able to have a conversation about their use case and really understand what's going on, why they are having such a hard time remembering their password, or why they're having such a hard time like understanding this little corner of things. And if we just make the assumption that those questions are just questions, like it's just like we miss out on so much that could happen.
I really like that perspective. Um, I don't know that I 100% agree. I don't know. I have to think about that because you just honestly, it comes down in my mind. It's like a triangle, and at the very base of it is prevention. Like your product should be good enough, or clean enough, or well designed enough that folks don't have questions, and that folks understand. Like, oh, I can reset my password here, or whatever the case may be. But if your product isn't there yet, that's interesting. Would you say that even if you were getting like 500 password reset questions a day?
Well, when I say that, I mean that because I'm a very data focused person. Like I'm a very analytical
Okay.
support professional. And like when I am looking at things for those repetitive questions, like where you're just sending out an article for the knowledge base, that is
Mhm.
that starts to start the conversation of, well, why didn't they know to look at this on their own? What is it that they're missing from the documentation? Why isn't the forgot password thing as obvious? And so it starts the webs of those things. Yes. And I do always worry that you would miss out on those sorts of analytics if you were just sending everybody over to a bot or to the help center, because people are still getting information, they're still needing information, but you're not able to extract it as easily. But what I really mean is, I think that there is too much of a negative, like, vibe to simple questions coming into support, and those are going to always happen, and you are responsible for analyzing them and finding out why they're doing it, but also those are still valuable questions that are coming from your customer, and they are still open for conversation and opportunities to create a foundation.
Okay, your clarification makes a lot of sense to me, and I agree with you. I agree with that. It, I like being able to see the data from, my bot, for example. I actually don't have a bot right now for support, but see the data, and then say, okay, they've asked this question 500 times. Why are they asking this? And then taking steps to figure that out and reduce it. And maybe that is removing the bot, so I can actually talk to these people and understand why, or maybe it's doing something else. But I agree that, like, there is this sort of, not taboo, but like, these easy questions shouldn't be asked. Well,
Yeah.
but they are asking them. So, like, let's figure out why. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that if you're getting 500 questions about something in a day, the bigger question is, what the heck are you doing to create a product that is having 500 questions about the same exact thing? Like, was this a slow ramp to
Yes.
500, or has this always been 500? Like, we need to have a conversation,
Yes.
because that is intense for no reason.
Yes. Prevention begins in the product. So that's where you're going back to your product team. Why is this button here? Or why isn't there a button here? Or whatever the case may be. Yes, 100%.
Yes.
We don't need to go out of our way to make things hard for the customer or make them ask those silly questions or those simple questions. But no, what I really like about my current role is that there's a huge emphasis on listening to the customer. And so not only myself, but a lot of the design team especially hops on calls with, like, our power users all the time. And I really, really love that. First of all, before me and the engineering and design teams were doing support themselves. So they're very empathetic to what that looks like and empathetic to their customers, but they're taking the time to listen even now and say, okay, like, why are you using it this way? How? Oh, this is a use case we've never thought of. That's actually really cool. We could build this thing to support this use case. So listening makes a world of difference.
I love that. I'm so glad that you're in a space, like, especially because you had mentioned in when we were going over who you are before the podcast, that you have previously been in a very different space for support, in a larger space from where you are now. And
Mhm.
that's great that you're able to enter into a company that has already set a tone with their customers of value, of listening, of impact, of community and transparency, which happens when you have those developers and engineers and product folks coming into the conversation. And so I'd love to know, like, how you have approached this with them and included the other teams in the conversation as you've been navigating entering into this different space.
Yeah, something that we did that I think is really cool is that we implemented a tool called Canny.io. It's a feedback tool. And so it's very simply placed inside of our product menu. So, like, if you're going to contact support, you can also see the option to provide feedback. And that board is monitored by primarily design. Engineering gets in there too, but primarily, like, the co-founders, myself, and design. And we respond to nearly every single person that leaves a comment. I'm sure this will become unscalable at some point. But right now, like, my designer, Nick, is in there all the time, like, oh my gosh, tell me about this. Why are you asking if you can embed this way? Like, what are you doing? Tell me about this. Let's hop on a call. Here's my Calendly. Like, and I can see how he's interacting too, which, since design and engineering were doing support before I came on, it was actually a very it helped me ramp up faster to see how they were interacting. But also just I'm seeing, okay, and then I can go follow up with Nick. Hey, I saw you talk to David. What did David have to say? And sometimes I end up talking to them too. And so it's a really cohesive flow of information. We also have Slack channels that we post in very regularly. And it's all very early stage startup. I mean, there's 16 of us. So there's no like set protocol, nothing's in stone, but we take our feedback and we put it in the beta feedback channel and we all talk about it. There's just a lot of discussions happening all the time that are very organic. And our product is very creative. It's a platform that you can use to make presentations or a website or an ebook. I've seen people make a website for their like restaurant, family-owned restaurant. So it's very flexible and fluid. And so we're kind of taking that flexible, fluid approach as well. And we're not locking into any one thing, which I think is really cool. I started to ramble a little bit, but basically like using shared platforms like Canny really helps facilitate those internal conversations.
No, I love that you are in such a collaborative space. And I mean, 16 folks is actually from because I come from bootstrap world, and so that's like long-term company team size in a lot of regards. Like that's
Yeah, 16. And I've been at early stage startups like this before. For example, Handshake. I was the 13th time. And I watched it scale and grow. But it's so nice to be back to what feels like my roots with this really tight, close-knit team. I mean, they've never had any attrition. Like the entire team is completely intact, which I love. And they just get stuff done, but it's not a hustle mentality. We're doing stuff constantly. We're constantly talking to people. We're constantly iterating, but it's not like a overwork yourself, don't have work-life balance type of hustle. And I really appreciate that.
Oh, that's so good, because there is such a difference, especially at least like I've seen since I started building teams and then reflecting on the teams that I've been in my career, and that kind of a mentality. Like the work that you produce when you are in that crazy hustle intense space is not of the same caliber as the work that you produce when you actually are allowed to be thoughtful with your time and purposeful and like thorough, and you just, there's so many opportunities for dropping the ball or forgetting something or just like skipping over it because you're so stressed about the timeline, and to build a culture around, no, we hired you because you're really good at what you do, and we want you to be able to do that to the capacity that you see fit, and here is the space to do it. That's when things really, really shine.
Yes, 100% agree. And I mean, I've been in the office one time with them. They're mostly in office. I mean, they work like remotely from an hour away, but they're mostly in office. I'm one of the only few people that are remote, truly remote. But just seeing them work together as well is so cool because, yeah, it's just this open floor plan and folks are typically quiet and focused. But like if an ad hoc conversation needs to come up, it comes up and then we just go back to our work. But it's not a forced thing, or there's no forced, like, not that stand-ups are a bad thing, but there's no like forced stand-ups or forced meetings for the sake of having meetings and checking boxes. It's really, all right, use your time wisely. And the output from what I can see so far has been, like you said, far more quality because they have the time and the space to actually do their work really, really well and base it on actual feedback from customers or from support. So that's just, I hope we never lose it. It's lovely.
It's awesome. Are you starting to like create the policies and the procedures and all of like the actual like locked in stuff right now, or is that something that you're going to hold off on until you start building out a team?
So I do have a really small team. They're outsourced. It's a BPO. They came on at the same time as me, and so I manage them. I'm starting to build those out, but it's pretty minimal at this point. Like our product also isn't. I mean, it is complex, but like you don't need a ton of policies yet at this point. It's more like, okay, when do we refund? When do we not? Things like that. We're working on an abuse and moderation policy because we should have at least a bare bones basic one at this point. But yeah, so starting to document those things, but it's not a pressing need at this point because we're not throwing bodies onto the team just to bodies. We just raised our Series A, which is super exciting. We just announced it yesterday, but we're not going to just, thank you. I did it myself, not at all. But we're not going to just start throwing bodies at things. So, yeah.
You have to do that. Yeah. You have to do that with support. You have to be aware of the volume, understand the customer, yes, and how to give them what they need, but also don't set the tone of, yeah, we're always going to get back to you in like 5 minutes because we're always here. We never are away, because that also is when you start to think about it, like from their perspective of like, no, we want you to have your weekend too. We want you to take the time with your family too. Like, we are here when it is appropriate for us to be here, but we are not here when it is not time for us to be here, and you should not be here either.
Yes, exactly. We do have a really large non-US customer base. So we have a lot of folks in China. We have a lot of folks in Korea. We have Germany starting to kind of be a big booming one, Brazil. So I am going to have somebody start working on the weekends, but I hired him specifically for weekends. And so, he gets his 2 days off during the week. And yeah, outside of those hours, still, like, we're not 24/7 support. We just have, all the days covered. Yeah. Outside of that, no, you're not getting a response. Like, look at our help center. We have tons of really cool tutorials on YouTube, and I plan on making more. Like, check out our resources. We'll get back to you, because everyone deserves that work-life balance. And honestly, like, why are you making a slide at like 12 a.m. your time? Go to bed.
And why is it so important for you to get an answer to your question about the slide at 12 a.m. your time? Like, let's just breathe and wait. We'll take that.
Yes. That would be cool. If customer support could influence the way the world works, I don't know. That's a pretty lofty goal, but could imbue everybody with a sense of work-life balance and pushing back a little bit. Are these slides really that important? Are they really due on this time frame, or can we take another, 6 hours or whatever? That would be cool. Support could do that.
I think support does do that. I think in its own way, it starts like, you have to be cognizant of the values of the company when you are interacting with support. If you are setting yourself up with fake expectations, that's on you, because you didn't look and see what the support policy is. What's the SLA? What are all of these things that are associated with it? And so if you are a company that wants to create a space for your team that is where they are allowed to enjoy their downtime without having to have Slack on their phone on just in case there's all these fires that really aren't fires, then the best way to do that is through customer support, and have that message be, okay, like, we hear you. We're going to get to you. We support you. We want you to be successful. Here's our help center. But we have boundaries, and maybe they'll start thinking, hey, wait a second. They're allowed to have boundaries in support. Why don't we have boundaries in support? And maybe it could just like trickle all around. I mean, we're the voice of the company. We're the people that are talking to the
trickle. Yes, I like it a lot. Yes, everyone needs boundaries. I like your perspective on that.
So you know what I realized, Hilary? I never gave you a chance to introduce yourself. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I can do that. I am Hilary. I have been in the customer support space since 2015. Also started working remotely in 2015. Started as an agent and worked my way up to director level. And currently I am the head of community and support at Gamma, which is an awesome platform for creating presentations and websites.
So awesome. I love that you started in remote from the very beginning for this sort of for your career, and have been building it ever since. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely before it was cool to do it. What was cool is it came about through a connection from my hospitality days, through my hotel days. I worked at the front desk for a while as a front desk supervisor for 5 years. Well, I wasn't a supervisor the whole time, but I worked for 5 years at a boutique hotel in Michigan. And with the Townsend Hotel, if you are familiar in Birmingham, it's Metro Detroit, so you might not be. Okay. Totally fine.
But cool shout out. I
But
mean,
one of
I'm
the
sure maybe
valets
someone
there,
will be.
yeah, yeah, it's a sweet little hotel. Um, one of the valets there went on to found Handshake, and I stayed connected to him, and that is how I started an agent at his job, at his place, at his company.
No.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh. If that doesn't tell you how important it is to like treat the people that you surround yourself with like kindness and empathy and build those connections and not in any sort of transactional way, but just be there, be present with other people and ask questions. Like who knows what could come out of it.
Yes, absolutely. Be present, be a good human, just make connections. I mean, we weren't best friends by any means, but I enjoyed talking to everybody there, and that included bellman and valet and housekeeping. And so when you make those connections, good things come out of it for everybody. So never be too good to be nice to somebody or friendly to somebody. I think pretty much everyone in our community is not like that. Oh, but
No, I think that is like a core value of every single person that I've come across in support, where they really do just want to take the time to help. They really do want to take the time to support people, and it's the ones like you, Hilary, that are moving up in the ranks of spaces and showing the teams that you lead and the companies that you enter that this is a way to be successful, and this does hold value, and this is important. That will hopefully share that it's possible with the folks that are going to be leaders after.
exactly. Exactly. You're doing the same thing. We're all doing it in our little parts of the world, and I love it. We'll have an awesome network of just wholesome, healthy places to work for our agents and for our teams, but also just for the customers. And like you said, if you can even influence just a couple customers to think, maybe I could have boundaries, or maybe my company or my team could have boundaries, you're doing good in the world. And that's awesome.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, why not? Why not try? So Hillary,
Yeah.
I'm curious too, like when you're working with the BPO for the
Mhm.
outsourcing for your team, like how does that work with leadership? Like for you as the leader, if they're not folks that you actually found and hired I mean, like you didn't hire them yourself. They're from this company
No.
that you brought in. So how is that dynamic, and how are you able to kind of influence their ways of working?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously they onboarded the same day as me, so I had zero say in even picking the BPO. But they are a newer one. They're offshores, they're not US, and I really like them so far, so that's helpful. The primary thing that I've done is become very close with their team lead. Her and I Slack all the time. We are constantly communicating. We have a weekly stand up that we attend and chat through things. And so that's really been the biggest part for me, is maintaining that connection with her. We seem to think very similarly about things, which is great. So our leadership approach is pretty much aligned, which is a stroke of luck, but very nice. So, like I said, the two that came on with her are still there, and then we just hired this other gentleman to work on the weekend. So it'll be interesting to see if she's remained aligned with what she brought with the other two, if she remains aligned with this one. But it's just been a lot of communication so far, just a lot of slacking and meetings, and not a ton of meetings, but a lot of slacking and just sharing ideas and such.
That's really nice. That's really nice because it could be such
Yeah.
a boundaries could be so blurry. And since you came on at the same time, that probably was the perfect scenario to be able to enter this space at the same level and navigate it together and build out what needed to be built out in order to support the team, especially if you're adding extra people too.
Yes, yes. And I think it established, like you said, like this really good like camaraderie, because yeah, I wasn't there first and then hiring her, but she wasn't there first and I came in. So we learned together, we onboarded, like the co-founders onboarded us in like engineering and design a little bit. So we got onboarded together. The BPO actually did a lot of the early documentation for their processes as well. So like they kind of took ownership of that. I've refined them a bit since, but like it's been very much a collaborative approach, and I think it's really helped us grow together and help build trust as well.
For sure. That's the biggest thing with having any sort of outsourcing is the trust aspect of it. You have to have that camaraderie and that foundation of trust in order for this to be an actual like partnership, because that's what it is at the end of the day.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So yeah,
Mhm.
well, we can do another check-in in, like a year or something, but so far it's been a really good few months with them. It's been about 5 months of working with them.
What's the company?
It's Horatio.
Never heard of them.
I know, they were new to me too. I was like,
I'll check them out.
yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we are getting towards the end of our hour, and but I do want to ask you, Hilary. So with every person that I have gift me with their time, I like to take a second for you to share what era you are in or what era you are entering. Hilary, what is your era?
I think my era is like, I was trying to find one word that would describe it. I think I'm going to use flow. I've just entered my flow era where I have boundaries that are super healthy and I'm not afraid to communicate them. But I'm also just not operating from a scarcity mindset anymore. I'm just like, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And I know that I'm equipped with life experience and the tools that I need to like get through it. Doesn't matter how bad it is. And so like, I'm just going to relax a little bit and not be so stressed about it, and not, things don't need to be so black and white. So flow seemed to be the correct word for that. It could be adjective, it could be noun, but just, I'm in my flow era. What's going to be is going to be.
I love this era, and I love that it's an ownership era too. You are, as you should be, proud of where you are in your career. You know what you know, and you know that you do it well. And it's that I've realized this too with the more people that I talk to. It's like it's shedding that desperation. It's we're not like
Yes.
desperate for this. It's like, no, you need us. You need Hilary to be successful for your company's customer experience, and you should be so excited and fighting to the death for her to join your team, instead of you, Hilary, being like, please just say yes. I'll take anything, which too many people for too
Right.
long, myself included, enter into those spaces in the beginning of, just don't say no. No, you've earned it. You've earned
Right.
it 100%.
Exactly. So have you. Absolutely. And there's a difference between making a grounded cognitive decision to be, I don't know, we can assume like you're laid off. Okay, I am going to take this gap job. It is what it is. This is what it's going to do. Here's the time frame. There's nothing wrong with that. But making a cognitive decision, not a stressed out, desperate decision. I mean, it's very true. The easiest way to like find your next job is to already have a job, because you're not operating from that desperation mindset. So just clearing that out of the way. You might have to do things you don't want to do. Bad things may still happen to me or may still happen to you, but like we can control how we react to it.
Yep. And we are still worthy of awesome things because we have worked hard and deserve them. That's it.
Exactly. End of story.
Yeah.
Period.
Awesome. What a perfect way to end this. Hilary, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful. I enjoyed actually getting to talk to you face to face for once.
Thank you, Hilary, and thank you, listeners, for tuning into this episode of Epical Growth. I hope Hilary's insights on setting boundaries has given you some practical tools and a fresh perspective to manage your personal and professional life more effectively. Remember, setting boundaries isn't about saying no. It's about creating the space you need to thrive and protect what matters most to you. If you found value in today's conversation, please subscribe to the podcast, please leave a review, and share it with your network. For more episodes and updates, you can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube, where there'll be additional clips and highlights from each of the episodes. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, let's keep setting those boundaries and growing boldly. I'm Sarah Caminiti. This is Epical Growth. I hope you have a great day.